Hey photographers! Today we will hear from another successful business owner who is reaching their financial goals by selling photography. Here's your host, Tavis Guild.
Hello, everyone. Tavis here. Welcome to the Selling Photography Podcast. I am so excited. Today we have an amazing guest with us. Craig Mcneil is in the house, and he's over in Denver, Colorado. So all my Colorado friends say hello. And he's been in business for 30 years, running Mcneil Designer Portraits. He says his love of the outdoors and passion for photography translates into beautiful family portraits that are cherished for a lifetime. His greatest joy is unveiling the final art for the first time and seeing the look of enthusiasm and awe that his photography brings to his clients. And so welcome with me, Craig. You're here with us. Welcome.
Hey, thank you, Travis.
Yes. So I love with selling photography. The goal is to get as many little just nuggets of goodness that we can apply, be encouraged, or even just have a vision cast for us. And so I thought it would be fun to start with looking different. So in the photography world and in industry, sometimes we see similarities across the board. And so something that I know you're passionate about is this idea of looking different. Tell me a little bit about that.
I think in order to stand out, especially in the day and age when everybody has a camera in their phone, I always say, what makes you different? Because it's what makes you different that sets you apart. So I think people say, well, how do I be different? I think the challenge, if somebody was listening to this, is to write down 10 things that specifically make you different. Mm-hmm. Don't copy anybody else. What do you do? What do you love? What's your passion? And if you say, I don't know, all you got to do, I learned a long time ago, if you really want to know what to do in your business, look at what everybody else is doing and do exactly the opposite.
It kind of goes along with the saying, the riches are in the niches, or so, I don't know if you've ever heard that. I love that idea, and so when we're thinking of that, how to be different, we're looking at all these other businesses and saying, hey, okay, I'm going to focus on something, in a totally different direction, or maybe an unserved direction in our different markets. And so when we're doing that, what is it that we're focusing on?
I think when you talk about being different, it's really how do you celebrate being flat out being different in your style of photography, mm-hmm. in your products, in your presentation, and when I say presentation, that can be presentation from the time somebody meets you, how they look at you, what your studio or your office looks like. I think it incorporates all of that, and I think it all goes into what are 10 things that make you different. And I think that's really where you need to look at yourself and what you're doing, and try not to be like anybody else. And in a world in which we live, we're all looking for that magic bullet that's going to get us over the hump. And so a lot of times we look at what everybody else is doing and try to do some kind of an offset or imitation of what they're doing. And I think to genuinely be authentic is really what people pick up on, and that's what people want. In a day and age of sameness, where everything looks the same. For example, do you offer products that you can get at Walmart, Target, JCPenney, Costco? You don't do that. Yeah. It's just that simple. Do something different, and it's to step outside in the world. I have no problem with that. My background, I had in another lifetime was skiing, and if all the crowd was standing here at this lift, go to another lift where there isn't anybody. If everybody's on a given run, go to a run where everybody's not. Usually that's steeper, it's deeper, it's more challenging, but there's less people there. So I learned that, just through that and how it applied to what I do in my photography. It's like, look at what everybody else is offering and do something completely different.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes along with, too, is kind of becoming an expert at one particular thing also, because not only are you looking for things that no one else, is doing, or not a lot of people are doing. I love the ski analogy. I've just been seeing some photos of people, actually over in Vail, over in your neighborhood, and the lines are just like up the hill.
So for example, I was there yesterday. I was skiing Vail yesterday. I was with a friend, and we were there. We were first chair at 8:30. Not a soul on it. Of course, it was a Monday. Don't ski on a weekend in Vail.
Yeah.
It's heinous. But it was the same type of thing. We were skiing in the back bowls, and we were skiing on teacup lift, and then we skied China Bowl. And when the crowd started showing up at the China lift, we went over to a Blue Sky. When it started getting crowded, it was just staying in front of the crowd. But that's a perfect example of I'm not a follow the crowd kind of guy.
Yeah.
So you were just saying, as far as where are we going with this? And I think I drill it down and say, well, what's your focus? And as photographers, it's not meant to be a pun as much as, if you look at successful photographers, the really good ones in the business, and we could all name names, they generally do one thing better than anything else.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's boudoir or families or weddings, but if you look at the greats in the business, the people that are coming to you and using your services, they probably excel at one thing better than anybody else. And that's a good clue as far as what you should be doing. I go on a lot. I love looking at other good photographers. I love going on their websites. I love looking at the work. And it can almost be depressing when you go on somebody's website and it's terrible. Well, just not, and maybe it's, the presentation, but, if you try to be all things to all people, then you end up being nothing to anybody.
Absolutely.
And so I think the theme is, for me, if I go on a photographer's website, and they do babies, seniors, food, families, headshots, architecture, maternity, boudoir, you're trying to be all things to all people. And typically what happens, Tavis, is if you went on that website and you looked at all their work, there's probably one thing that just seems to pop or stand out that they do better than anything else. That's what their focus should be. Now with due consideration, you got to consider, a lot of people say, well, I can't do that in my market. It's not possible in my market. But the more narrow you can be, and the more, you were just saying, as far as what makes an expert or how does somebody perceive you as an expert. For me, I do family portraits. I do them on location. Obviously, I've got a mountain backdrop, which makes me the envy of most of the rest of the world because of where I live. I live in Mecca for locations. I mean, it's stunning. There's a world-class location in every direction that you go. And so I'm very fortunate. But that's a perfect example of, I use that in my favor. So what can you use that makes you the expert as far as who you do, what you do, and how you do it?
Yeah. Well, so there's an acronym that goes along with focus that I heard a long time ago. It's follow one course until successful. And that's, you hit the nail on the head, is sometimes we are, seeing other photographers that are maybe on the struggle bus, and you say, okay, well, let's talk about this. Let's unpack this. And you go to their website and you start to look like, well, you do everything. You're doing pet photography, you listed all, boudoir, family, parachuting, cows. I mean, just whatever, whatever phone call they get and they say, I'll pay you. They're like, sure. And that's the danger of it, right? Is when to say no. And then also what to show is a big part of that. Is that you don't necessarily have to say no to someone calling to give you money, but that might not be what you want to be known for. That might not be what you need to show.
Oh, well, I just saying what's your focus, and in as far as what do you excel at? Mm-hmm. Number one. Then if you have that, then what's your particular style? Because you can, and what we're doing right here is going from a general perspective of doing everything to becoming more focused on doing something. And we're talking about photography, so doing something that, whatever that is, and it could just be a minor tweak that gives you a whole different aspect. And in the world in which we live, I think it can be depressing if you look at what everybody else is doing. Go, I could never do that. It's like, that's a pretty self-defeating perspective. And you were just saying, what you just said previously, I think it's like, if you're on the struggle bus, which was your term, I think that becomes a matter of for first of all, confidence, faith in yourself, and being able to persevere to see that through. Because the world in which we live, it's going to beat you down. Whether it's people want a cheaper price, or we can go down the street and get that. So that's why you have to be. I use Guild Canvas is a perfect example. Why do I use Guild Canvas? Because I think that they're the best in the industry. There's a lot of other companies that do a bonded style of canvas, but I don't think anybody else does it better, which is a perfect example of why I use you. Kudos to you for that.
Thank you for the kind words, definitely. Well, and that goes down the same topic that we're talking about is we were talking about being successful at one thing, and when you're focused on kind of that one thing also, you kind of get these 10,000 hours accumulated where all of a sudden you are so much of an expert in one specific area that success truly follows you. I think of a pilot, right? They're flying. They have to have so many hours before they have passengers and different licenses and ratings and all that stuff. But I can tell you right now, if a emergency were to come up and these pilots have these well over 10,000 hours, but they have these amount of training and exercise. Well, a guy could have an engine fly off the plane, and you'll hear him say, "Tower, we just lost an engine. We
that happened.
Totally calm.
That happened yesterday."
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. But no, the pilot is totally calm, collected. He knows what the next step is. And I feel like sometimes when, as photographers, and I can think back to some of my own struggles, is that I wasn't spending enough time in any one thing. So therefore my confidence, which is what you talked about, my passion and just the comparison of other photographers was the absolute thief of joy that I could have been receiving, in this. I love the when I was talking about your bio, that you love unveiling these family portraits to these clients and seeing that enthusiasm and that joy because you chose to focus. You chose to be excellent at your craft in that specific vein and do it incredibly well.
So to our listeners, I challenge you. It's like, what products or services do you offer that can help celebrate your style? Obviously, Guild Canvas is one of them. So because of that, you can charge more. You don't have to be the cheapest guy on the block. I mean, everybody that's competing is competing with, they think they're competing with the photographers in the other area as compared to the products and services and who you are, who the personality is. Obviously, if you're a photographer and you're doing people photography, you got to have a personality, because if you don't. And so I think that if otherwise, you're just a commodity. And if you're a commodity, that means you're just trying to be the cheapest, which is not a sustainable model. It's also going to be a struggle to succeed. By default, if you're unique, different, offer a product that Joe consumer can't get anywhere else except from you, you can and you should charge more. One of the examples I always use is potato chips. Nothing's more common than potato chips. You can go to the grocery store, Quickie Mart, and you can buy a bag of chips. And if you go to any place, then you're basically buying on price. But, look at premium potato chips. That's a good example. Let's just say, and I'm going to hypothesize that, the potatoes are growing on the Himalayan slopes and they've been fertilized by the spotted snow leopard at elevations higher than 12,000 feet, and they've been aged in barrels, Himalayan oak barrels for 20 years. You can sell the darn potato chips for 20 times more. I mean, the kettle chips you buy in that natural grocer are more expensive for the same reason. Coffee's another one. I mean, we've all seen the movie The Bucket List where they talk about Kopi Luwak coffee. Well, it's really a coffee. It's made by Volcanic, and if you go on Amazon, a pound of that sells for $400. $400 for a freaking pound of coffee? You got to be kidding me. And that's exactly the point that I'm making is, what is it that you do and how do you present it that allows you to charge more and be justified for it? You're a perfect example once again. I mean, Could you go somewhere else and get something that's less? Maybe, but it's not the same thing. It's not what you do. I think, let me ask you, Tavis, is there
Yeah.
anybody else that does what you do in North America at the level that you do it?
Well, the short answer is every time I've ever, first of all, I don't like to compare because I feel like that's kind of unfair because it's an apples to oranges. There's just truly a different amount of craftsmanship and expertise, and there's the story that goes along with it, and it adds a lot of value. And so when it comes to products, you talking about Guild Canvas, which is for you listeners out there that haven't gotten to know me much, that's a company that I own, that we supply handmade canvases to photographers. You're talking about something that has a story but is the highest quality in one particular vein that you can get. And so what that leads to is us photographers being passionate. And so when we're offering a product, if we're not passionate about that product, our clients can sniff that out from a mile away. And you can lose a sale without even have you ever been in a room, Craig, where someone's talking about something you've never heard of it before, but their energy and their passion behind it, you just want to, whatever it is you want, because it's contagious. Our clients same thing.
I was just going to say that passion and enthusiasm for what you do is contagious. People just pick it up. The old thing is that, well, what if I don't have passion and enthusiasm? It's like fake it till you make it. And it doesn't mean, it just means you kind of have to, it's not by drinking more coffee. It's just a matter of just believing in what you do, loving what you do. I love what I do. Now, I've been doing it for a long time, and I think you do anything, you gain the experience. I mean, we all fall on our faces. We all make the dumb mistakes, and I mean, to this day we're all making mistakes. But it's just taking the mistake, saying, hey, don't think I'll do that one again, or try not to, and move on, so you can continue to grow. And going back, is maybe it wasn't fair to say, is there anybody else in North America? I think
it's okay.
Well, from my perspective, it's just that I think that you offer a great product that's not been replicated just from my limited perspective. So I appreciate that. And in the products that I offer, I'm looking for one-of-a-kinders that set me apart, both in the product that I'm offering and what I feel I can charge, what the market will bear. Because there are always people out there that they want the best, they expect the best, and they're willing to pay for the best. So if you can develop that kind of a mindset, then you can succeed.
Yeah. So, I mean, really what we're talking about is the amount of psychology that goes into just getting ourselves in the right mindset. Oftentimes is the path that we get taken on, for success. Like being able, so to recap that whole part is being able to focus on something, gain experience that's beyond and surpasses everyone around you, where you're the expert. And then I love your coffee analogy of, when we add a story to the portraits we're creating, the value increases so much. And so when you can, I love this concept that's out there of making your clients the hero of the story that's being created. Like when their portrait's on the wall, and you can, for our listeners in any genre, high school seniors, boudoir, family, but if the subject matter on the wall all of a sudden becomes that legacy item, and whoever initiated that, whoever made the decision to have that on display, is they're now the hero of the family, because who knows what's coming down the road, but you can always look back on that special season of life.
I enjoy, something that you do very well is you help create the value. You offer a service where you can actually show somebody how you are making their image, and they can use that in their marketing. That's a perfect example of how you can be different than everybody else in your neighborhood, or anywhere else for that matter, is that, you can show your client the amount of work that goes into it, the hands that touch it, the artistry that goes into it. By default, that allows you to be specialized in a product that you offer, regardless of the style of photography you're doing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, let's shift gears here a little bit because I want to make sure that we're kind of adding value across the board here. And so I have this question here, Craig, and I want you to think back to a time in your business where you were in a similar position. And so let's say that you had $10,000 to put somewhere in your business that would have the most impact, the most, and you can define impact however you want, but usually that means growing success. So think back to a time, where would you have put that $10,000 that would have added the most impact to your journey in photography?
Well, I think, in doing this for 30 years, there's been a lot of evolutions. So when you first start off, do you have a decent camera? We're photographers, so we're always chasing after the latest and greatest. The latest and greatest don't necessarily mean you're going to be a better photographer. So it's like, get a good camera that's going to produce the results that you want. And then learn how to use the camera. A lot of people are intimidated by that. They put it on P for program, and that's about it. But in the day and age of YouTube, where you can basically type in any subject that you want about anything, I don't care what that is, and there's these little video clips that'll come up, and it'll walk you through something, and teach you how to do it. So going back to your question, it's like, do you put it into equipment? Do you put it into your, office or studio? Do you put it into your, what you're willing to spend on the materials? Do you put it in your marketing? A lot of people would say, hey, let's take the 10 grand and put it in marketing. Because if you don't have leads and you don't have customers knocking on your door, all the other stuff is superfluous. So, I think it just depends on where you are in the journey that you're on to be a better photographer, be a better artist, and whatever that looks like for you and how you define that. Because it's easy to throw money at something, but what kind of return are you going to get on the investment that you have? And I think that's an important point, that if I got this much money, will it do something for me to allow my business to grow?
Yeah. And of course, that $10,000 is completely arbitrary. For some, it may be I have $10, and for others that, they may have, sliding scale somewhere between or above. But I do love, Craig, that you thinking back to, in your journey, that equipment, obviously an artist can create art, with even just a phone, right? Mm-hmm. But having the right equipment does remove barriers, and kind of having the right tool for the job. I think back to, like an analogy of a plumber. You hire this plumber to come over, and he can change out a faucet very quickly, efficiently, without breaking anything, and the experience, which is the main point, is intact and great, where, I could try and do that, and I may not have the special wrench that folds sideways to go up into a little tiny little hole to spin it, and it'll take me the better part of the day, and maybe I damaged something, did it wrong, and I still have to call the plumber anyways. And so equipment does matter. It matters the most, I feel, not just to the artistry, but secondly, to the experience that your clients have with you when you do have the right equipment.
I think it's get the tools to do the job. And I think, you always hear anybody that speaks at any of the photographic conferences where they say, be careful of having to run out and buy the latest and greatest, whatever came out. The technology is, as we know, is just in the last number of years is just accelerated at light speed. So mirrorless cameras and wireless everything, it's it boggles the mind. But this also, I think, if you do your research, can help you identify products and things that set you apart too. Because I think if you really drill down, what's the evolution going to be? I think that what I find is everybody's got the cell phone, and so when somebody comes in and they sit down with me, I said, what do you need me for? You got this thing here. Everybody's got this, and did you ever print anything off of this? And most people say no. So in the world in which we live, where you're actually making prints that you put on display in your home or your office, That's a big deal in this day and age. That's a big deal, and I call that intentional photography. We're doing this intentionally with an end result that we're going to put it on display. I think the biggest disservice is, a lot of, and this is not taken away from somebody that's starting off, but a lot of people get started, they'll, for a couple $100, they'll give you all the digital images. Well, are they color corrected? Are they cropped? Are they retouched? I mean, and are they produced? And what I say is, when somebody looks at, the work that's right here behind me, it's like, I have to be able to produce something that you can't. It's just that simple. That's what I tell my clients. It's like, that's why you hire me.
Right.
You can't get this anywhere else. So I think that's a really critical component.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. So as we are getting towards the end here, I have one final question for you, Craig. And again, this is again, thinking back, because you've just been in this industry so long, and you have so much value to give us. So I'm kind of mining, one little chunk at a time here. But
Drilling down.
Just drill it down, drill it down. But think back to, in your photography business, what was one piece of advice that a mentor or someone gave you that moved the needle that you can share with everyone here at Selling Photography?
What's one thing that moved the needle? I think, something I hit on was, be careful of running out and buying, the next best thing that just got invented for photography. Learn to use the tools that you have. And learn to use them well. And I know that for a lot of people that are not, I'm not a tech guy. I'm really not. My son works in the business, Sean, and he's a great photographer, and he teaches me a lot. And I'm not quite as technical as Sean is. And I think there's a lot of people that might agree that, hey, I'm not all that technical, but learn what you can do with your camera. Learn what your lenses can do. I mean, if photography is specifically your thing, then be better at what it is that you do. There's a saying I have that is my philosophy is, I have to be the best me for me before I can be the best me for you. And I apply that to my business, to my life, to who I am, to my marriage with my wife, Amy. I have to be the best me for me. And so that's a challenge to the listeners to say, how can you be the best you at what you do so that you can be the best you for your clients?
Yeah. Oh man, I think we should leave it at that, because that's huge. We have to be the best versions of ourselves, and we have to be authentic, is kind of what I hear in that also. Yeah. And not trying to copy paste whatever just inspired us on some social media story or something, but instead navigate and this journey we're all in the photography industry, and find the authenticity that resonates with you. And I think success is just going to follow that.
If you're passionate and you're enthusiastic, that leads to trust.
Yes.
And when it leads to trust, people do business they know, they like, and they trust. So we'll leave it at that.
I love it. Well, Craig, thank you so much for hanging out with all of us. And I'll put in the show notes for everyone how you can connect with Craig if he wants to be found. That'll be there for you. But Craig, just thank you so much for your time and wisdom and just good words.
I appreciate all you do, Tavis, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Selling Photography with Tavis Guild, sponsored by Guild Canvas Company, a luxury line of museum-quality canvases for photographers, hand-painted and easy to clean. Go to guildcanvas.com and click Become a Client to get started.